The standard Subaru Forester is a fairly efficient all-wheel drive compact crossover, but the Wilderness trim lifts it up a little bit, puts some meatier tires on, and most importantly for this test, decreases your estimated fuel economy numbers. So what sort of MPG can you expect here in the real world with the Forester Wilderness? Let's go find out. Hey everybody, it's Charlie from Daily Motor, and today we've got the real-world highway fuel economy test of the 2022 Subaru Forester Wilderness. Today's test, we're going to head out on the highway, do 50 miles out and 50 miles back, averaging 70 miles per hour, to figure out what sort of realistic highway fuel economy numbers you can expect for this car. Before we get started, let's hop out and take a look at it. Now, I'm actually quite a fan of this car. Admittedly, if I were to buy one, money to paper, I probably wouldn't get the Wilderness package. As much as I like it, I don't see myself being the type of person to really utilize it. It's really only an extra half an inch of ground clearance, and then the tires, which again, I don't do a lot of off-roading, probably don't have too much need for it. I do kind of like the designs though, admittedly. If you do want to see more on the Forester Wilderness, check the links in the description. I'm going to run sound system test, as well as a members only sound system test. We've got a DM review, all sorts of coverage. Link will be in the description. So why do we do this test? Well, the EPA's highway fuel economy test, which gives this Forester Wilderness 28 miles per gallon, that test only averages 48 miles per hour. We know there are people who do plenty of highway driving and would like to know what sort of numbers they can realistically expect here in the real world. So in order to do that, we're going to head over to the gas station here, fill up, go out and do 100 miles, come back, fill up at the same pump using the same 3-click fueling method, and get a result. A few things to note for today. Outside temperature is 36 degrees Fahrenheit. Our tire pressures have been set to their door placard, 33 psi front, 32 psi rear, and we're going to run the climate control at 73 degrees auto. Interestingly enough, the second vehicle we ever did a Daily Motor highway fuel economy test on was a Forester. It was a standard Forester, and it got really good fuel economy. It beat its EPA. It actually got 35 MPG, which is pretty darn good for this class of vehicle. I don't suspect we'll get something like that, but even if we got above 30 with this Wilderness spec, that would be pretty cool. All right, let's hop out and fill it up. 2.957 gallons going in for our first fill. Before we start the engine, we're going to reset the car's trip computer and our GPS, set our climate control, and we are ready to begin. Like having nice, big, meaty climate controls right there. Physical, important. Something you don't get in newer Subarus, or rather, recently redesigned Subarus. We do have a few different drive modes here in the Forester, but none of them are very economical. They're mostly for off-road. So we're just going to run this test in normal. Take it nice and easy over to the highway, pick up the test from there. Now the goal of this test isn't to hypermile. We're not trying to get the best possible fuel economy, but rather a realistic figure. In order to do that, we're going to get up to highway speed here at a reasonable pace and set our cruise control at a GPS indicated 72 miles per hour. That should allow us to average 70 over the whole test. This is just the naturally aspirated 2.5 liter boxer motor, but I quite like it. I think it makes better sounds than a lot of the Subaru engines and has enough power for daily use. We do have adaptive cruise control and what should prove to be a fairly good active lane keeping feature as well. We'll report back on that a little bit after the drive. Looks like 72 on the dash is giving us 71 on the GPS, so we'll have to bump up to 73. Fan's blowing pretty hard, so it's kind of hard to tell what we got for highway noise. Oh, why are we doing 74? Okay, calm down, calm down. Oh, actually, I take that back. The car's speedometer is fairly accurate. Looks like we're going to have to bounce between 71 and 72 throughout the test. All right, well, we're going to settle in here and continue on with the test and catch up with you at the end. In the meantime, enjoy this time lapse of the entire trip. Coming into the end of the highway fuel economy test here in the Forester Wilderness. According to the trip computer, not looking good. 24.8 miles per gallon, and I really, really hope that figure gets better at the pump, because that is a pretty woeful number for this class of vehicle. And especially because the last Subaru we tested got 35, a 10 mile per gallon drop. Now, admittedly, there has been some strong wind on this test, but in theory, since we're going the exact same direction, or the opposite direction back, it should negate most of that wind. It should negate elevation, wind, etc. And it's been a fairly clean test. In fact, we haven't even averaged 70 miles per hour. There hasn't been any traffic backups, just a little bit of holdups from semi-trucks and that sort of deal. So it's a very clean test. It's been running smooth. I'm really surprised we haven't been getting better fuel economy. So hopefully the trip computer is a bit wrong, and when we fill up we can see a few mile per gallon difference. But I suppose from a scientific standpoint, it would make sense if the Wilderness model were to get below its EPA, because we're dealing with higher ride, which means more wind resistance, and wind resistance increases exponentially with speed. So our test being a good bit faster than the EPA's test, it would make sense if this were not to do very well. It's just a shame, because overall I kind of like it. The only thing I'm not a big fan of is the fact that you have to hear a beep every time the adaptive cruise control notices a vehicle in front of you. Apparently there is a way to get rid of that with a button dance here on the steering wheel. I'm going to attempt it. But I don't mind being in this car. There's a lot I like about it. In fact, the Harman Kardon sound system is better than I expected as well. So we're going to get back to the pump here, fill it up, and do our calculation and see what sort of fuel economy we're really getting. 3.933 gallons going in for our final fill, which I can tell you is not looking good for the Subi. 101 miles traveled divided by 3.933 is giving us 25.68 miles per gallon. So the only saving grace for the Forester Wilderness is that it's just barely getting the bump to 26 based on the rounding from the pump. But man, 2 miles per gallon below EPA and 9 miles per gallon lower than the last Subaru we tested, the last Forester I should say. Again, I'll point out it's colder weather this time. We should be expecting a little bit drop in fuel economy, but the tire pressures were set properly. The test was fairly clean. We're getting a fair bit of cooperation between the vehicle's trip computer and the pump. It's a shame. It really is. And it kind of just backs up my feeling of, look, the Wilderness Edition's cool. It really is. I like the gold accents. I like the added off-road capabilities. But the normal Forester is pretty off-road capable as well. It's got 8.7 or 8.9 inches of ground clearance, something really good like that. It's got the all-wheel drive. If you're going to be doing any significant amount of driving, just get yourself that model and maybe put some fancy bits on it or something, or get the Onyx edition, looks cool as well or something. Save yourself the fuel economy just for interest's sake. Let's say both of our tests are dead on accurate and you're going to get 9 miles per gallon better in the non-Wilderness edition, and you travel 12,000 miles a year. You'd be spending $1,477 a year on fuel with this model versus $1,097. So you'd be spending almost an extra I guess it's more like $300 on fuel a year just by getting the Wilderness model. And for some people, hey, that's totally worth it. It's cool enough, the added usability and stuff. It's just something interesting to think about when you're weighing the two models together. We do have a 16.6 gallon fuel tank in this Forester, so 16.6 times 26 miles per gallon is giving you an effective highway cruising range of just a hair over 430 miles for the Forester Wilderness. So thank you all so much for watching. If you do want to see more on the Forester, check the link in the description, and we'll see you on the next one. I'm Charlie from Daily Motor, and as always, drive on.